Yeah,
Going.
yeah, good. I'm glad you put up some of those videos because the first thing I watched was the Palantir one, which was called basically the second one. And then I thought, oh, what was going on in the first one? And you put the first one up too, because I was thinking, oh, I better put that one up.
We did that one ages ago. I put it up by mistake, but started listening to it because I downloaded it, but it's over 30 days ago, so it's no longer in the time feed. But I think we did it before I went over to the UK on the 14th of August. But it is relevant to what you were saying about Palantir, and I mean all this stuff is connected.
I haven't listened to that one, but the first one from Monday morning, I started listening to that one. And what was interesting about that one was your immediate reaction was you said, okay, don't forget Ali Parsa, as you said, and Cambridge Analytica. And in some of the research that I've been doing yesterday, which again was very, very, I mean, in a way, light research, but still research, they come up. Exactly as you said. And I think also, the stuff that you did into, is it Katera and stuff like that, the SoftBank stuff. So I think that's also that part of your mentality to kind of clock these things that are all moving in parallel. They just are, is really useful. So, I looked at your comment. I replied to your comment. I think everyone's coming off quite well because at least everyone's.
Well, look, Ranjan, I listened to the whole thing, and it was 4 o'clock this morning. I woke up and thought, I'll watch that video that Ranjan was uploading, and I watched the whole thing, and I did listen very carefully. But I mean, it did remind me of when we sat down with Tom at the Red Lion. Do you remember how shocked I was that there was
his name was Joe. His name was Joe. But I'm glad you called him Tom because that means that if he ever reads it, he won't.
Yeah. So But
you mean the bit because the odd hard moment in that conversation was the bit where he suddenly said, he said everything about the Great Resignation or whatever, but then at one point I said, oh yeah, and for example, Hancock saying we need to oblige. I said I agree with you completely, Joe. About people being treated at work like that, and look at the bit where they say that they're going to force everyone the jabs in the care homes, that work there, and he just said I agree with that. And I don't think you and I now recognize that was a serious turning point. Because he was so on it. He was so young. He knew so much stuff. And then he said, no, I believe in forced vaccinations. Full stop. No questions.
It's shocking. It is just shocking. But we're in climate breakdown.
Sorry, yeah.
The one thing your man said, and I just thought, well,
yeah,
I'd love to sit down and have a little chat with him about atmospheric physics and see how much he really fucking knows, because he probably knows absolutely jack shit.
Well, I think what's also interesting is that, I mean, you've done sales, you've bought advertising space, la-di-da-di-da. So essentially it's a pitch, one for the book, but I don't mean to be so cynical as to just say that, but also, for the issues and everything like that. So it's very interesting from a relatively hard sell perspective. It's very en vogue to use climate change, and you have to work it in almost. So it's very interesting the way it's done.
Well, put it this way. I mean, how will our bloc win? Basically, for the Corbyn bloc to win, you don't need him as the communications director, because, most people won't watch that whole thing. I mean, I did. I listened to it, but begs so many questions, blames everybody else, doesn't really put up any. It doesn't have any start in a set. There are no building blocks in there to run with, and it just references a few memes, which if you're on their side already, you'll know what they are and be cheering. But you've got to watch that Leighton Crosby interview.
Sure. Well, speaking from my side, I'm a bit close to all of this because, as you know, the ink was still pretty wet when I uploaded it. So for me, I was grateful that he let me do it, la-di-da. So, I'm not in a great position.
Oh, no, it's good. You've done a great job on it. I mean, he's got, I think he is fairly representing it himself. I don't, it's a long thing, so I don't think any of it's out of context. You've allowed him to state what the book's about, what he thinks the issues are, and that's great.
Yeah. Now on the another topic, which is kind of very parallel and close, I spoke to someone who you know about, who has been a friend over the years. I mean, technically, we may not see him on those terms at the moment, but and you know about that. But anyway, I called him up yesterday. He was quite surprised to take my call. Just said, look, just calling for a chat. It was fine. It was kind of media related. Mentioned the chat with James and the book. And that was interesting because the first thing that he said, so my friend that I was speaking to yesterday has a different accent to James.
This is the cameraman that knows Hallam rather well.
No.
Him?
I didn't talk to him. I would never talk to that guy again. No, but the person who introduced me to him. Anyway, lives up north. So right. I spoke to him and he said, what would I mean, he was as gracious as you in both directions. On the one hand, he said, you know, what the fuck do I have to learn from this guy about strategy? Because I said it was about strategy, not about policy. And, you know, he really tried to hold back because I didn't record the call because it was just a social call. But, you know, one of the things was, what do you think of, you know, nice and early, what do you think of James Schneiders? And he said, intellectual powerhouse. So I thought, oh my God, I can see where this is going. It's fine. And he basically said, me and my crew, who are all working class, probably northern, you know, we chat about this stuff. You know, we've got something happening. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing something that's going to open up in November. And he basically said, you know, we talk about this stuff. And this guy doesn't speak for us. Corbyn was a failed project. You know, what the fuck? How has this guy got a book deal? To which I said, well, maybe anyone could get a book deal. But he was really unimpressed before watching the video. I don't know if he did. But, you know, so it's a similar kind of thing to what you're talking about in that, you know, he would have been saying, this guy's just going to wave a couple of flags and walk off. That's what, yeah, this is what these people are saying. I mean, I still think there was I'm still glad that he did what he did. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, well, I've more sympathies with your man up north, I think. That I tell you, who'd be a good person to interview. I can't remember his name, but I saw him on a panel. He's a fire brigade union guy.
Oh, do you mean Matt Rack or
Matt Rack wanted to ban Emery from who was the red-haired guy.
Yeah, do you mean Embry then?
I like Embry, but there's another one, right?
Yeah, you talk about Eddie Dempsey. He's transport.
Yeah, Eddie Dempsey. Yeah. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, he is. I like
real. Yeah, I mean, and he said all of this stuff in this YouTube. He you know. Do you know there was some Guardian journalist spoke.
You know what they're trying to do with these guys, particularly. I mean, I can't say because you know some of them are less savvy than others. I would say when it comes to just who they are and being themselves. In my view, I don't know. Don't want to overjudge, but I think in the case of Eddie Dempsey, he's someone they're trying to portray him like he's some fucking racist. And
that's what they always try to do. He's Irish. I mean, he remembers the old "No blacks, no Irish." I mean, you know that.
Yeah, well, that may be true, but that doesn't mean that he can't be portrayed. So anyway, either way, he, when I see that happening to him in particular, I feel really bad.
Anyway, he would be a good one. Tell you what, he'd be great to interview and say, look, I interviewed James Schnieder. I think you would make a good contrast. Do you fancy doing an interview? And then edit them side by side because it would be absolutely hilarious and very, 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 very educational for people that know nothing about the working class movement.
Well, I have no interest in participating in the field of comedy, Roger. Thank you. Not sure why you're laughing, but I take myself extremely seriously. But I will do anything for attention. So yes. Considering that.
I'm glad you remembered his name, but he is the antithesis to the Schneider thesis, I think, and the synthesis is whatever it is. I mean, it's certainly not Keir Starmer or Liz Truss, is it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there is space for all of these people. You know, even yeah. I mean, this again. You know, I'm accidentally doing faint praise. I don't mean that. I really mean that. I think there's space for all these people. Just be so much better if people could start hearing each other as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, have at it. I mean, I absolutely think so.
Somebody sent me a message today. So first of all, on Aaron Bastani's Twitter feed, I saw a photograph of, I can't remember the name of the lady that runs Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland. She was talking to Liz Truss at some ceremony yesterday, or recently. Then they showed a video of the guy in charge of the Irish Assembly from Sinn Féin being very respectful to King Charles about his death, which I know you are too. And then, but it's still a bit surprising in some ways. And then I saw this tweet go around that somebody sent me saying that if you analyze this is a bit like I've been trying to do this actually because, as you know, William does gambling and betting analysis on politics. So I try to push this thing where, because with PMQs at the end of last term in July, he was doing this thing where they said, who's going to sit next to Boris Johnson for his last PMQs? Is it going to be Rob? Is it going to be Nadine Dorries? Is it going to be Priti Patel? All that sort of thing. And so he said to me, look, have you got any ideas? So for the last time I said, yes, is it going to be Kwasi and Coffee? And I was wrong. It was Mordaunt and Coffee that were either side of her. But I decided that, do you remember that in the same way that you had Kremlinologists, you also had Fed watchers, and the Fed watchers would talk about what colour Greenspan's tie was, etc. So I decided I did a TikTok video. One of my first TikTok videos I did was about a week ago. And I said, who's going to be either side of Liz Truss and what colour will they be wearing? You know, will it be James Cleverly, bloody-da, in blue, Colonel Mustard, etc.
Oh, you could actually say, and what colour will they be as well? Because it's this rainbow coalition.
That is really good. I thought I was being bad. You are so bad. Can I just say this, right? Can I just say this at the better level? And I know I might get into some trouble for this, but you open the envelope and you say, and the winner was chocolate.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Okay, so
I'm really pleased that Kwarteng is Chancellor and he's sacked some people. Because you had that encounter with him when you were talking to him. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I must say, when you told me that story, I thought, actually, he sounds like a really good bloke. So I'm really, really happy he's Chancellor, because I really am. I think he should do a good job,
Again, all I know is I don't agree with anything he says on television, but he was.
Mate, you met him in real life, and he was an absolute gent, and he had some depth. He did have depth, you must admit.
Now, speaking of which, okay, this is what I was going to say, because I was leading up to the thing when I said, who's sitting on either side, and as you said, what color are they wearing? What color are they?
Yeah.
So there was this one last thing though, because I saw this tweet go around, and it was to do with a bit like Greenspan's tie. It was to do with the symbolism of Liz Truss's jewelry. And you had someone who could have been any one of our genders speaking to a camera saying, look, I'm not being funny, but I've just clocked that the most frequently occurring piece of jewelry on Liz Truss is a particular chain. It's a necklace, and the necklace has a chain on it, like a ring. And she normally wears that, but sometimes she wears another one. Not always, but most of the time. And it basically said that she is the submissive partner in a submission domination relationship. And then they start speculating about, the affair that she had and la-di-da-di-da. But, oh, come on. Do you think there's a market for what type of scene is she going to be wearing?
My word. What, for betting? I doubt it somehow. I don't know.
Okay. And is there any chance that you'll come over to Liverpool for the Labour conference?
What, me come over to Liverpool?
Just asking, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have to, like with Mipim. I mean,
Well, look, mate.
I'd
I'd love to go. I'd love to come to Liverpool. I mean, and
you might
I
have
mean,
some work.
sure. I'd be interested to go along, but did I ever tell you the story about I was invited to the Mansion House by Eric Sorensen, who was the CEO of the London Docklands. He kept trying to introduce me to all these politicians, right? Like he introduced me to John Major when they opened the Limehouse Link and stuff like that.
I remember you telling me. I remember you saying that you said, "Why would he want to talk to me?" You know, let's not waste his time, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He said, "No, you must," and I had David Mellor's mistress pushing me in the back because she was, he's married and now she was really keen to meet him.
Right.
But anyway, I went to the Mansion House to this thing over there, and it was full of all the. I met the MP for Tower Hamlets, which was nice, Una King. She was lovely, but I also met the Liberal Democrat guy for Bermondsey. Do you remember him?
Simon Hughes.
Yeah. Oh God, he was awful. And because they're all sort of everybody tries to work out who you are, why you're there, and whether you're worth talking to.
Yeah, makes sense.
And if they realise you got a few bob, obviously they want to talk to you. It's really, really just. I don't. It's not my scene. I mean, I like sitting down with people and getting stuff done.
Don't tell me, Roger. You'd rather go to the ballet.
Well, yes, the ballet, of course. Yeah. Indeed.
Dear, oh dear.
Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So, so where were we? So, yeah, we've been talking about Palantir and that sort of thing. And, yeah, what's the latest?
Well, my latest is I've been analysing Rishi Sunak's first budget and all the stuff they said about affordable housing, because the Bank of England figures came out yesterday for the last quarter's mortgage lending, and it's coming to the end of the revised Help to Buy scheme, December 2022, and it's notable that it's dropped off a cliff. I mean, I did an analysis of it at the time, basically saying, they basically saying what I said, which is very nerdy. But the other the point is that's relevant to what I'm a businessman. This is the politics of the planning system. That's all. There's a new housing minister, yet another one, and
Oh, is there? Okay.
yeah, all this talk. I'm about to watch a video with Andrew Sachs, or whatever he's Jeffrey Sachs, the Economist. This came up on
Manuel from 40 Towers.
Jeffrey Sachs. We're in a crisis, and it will get worse in the coming months. August 25th, 2022. He was famously on Newsnight in 2010 with Hugh Hendry, and Hugh Hendry savaged him. And Sachs, who's a very sort of waspish American academic, steady on, is just but Henry gave him the old Glasgow kiss. It was fantastic.
With Bill Gates, isn't he? He's that school kind of thing.
I mean, he's just another crap economist, that doesn't know what he's talking about, basically. He may even have a Nobel Prize, which is a definite sign that you don't know what the fuck you're on about. So, yeah.
Okay, so you know what you were saying about the mortgages not happening at the moment, or fewer happening. Do you think that's the terms and conditions that the banks are putting in, and then basically not wanting to lend at the moment?
Well, the tide is going out. We're just coming up to a credit crunch. It's what I was saying about keeping the monetary specie in short supply. That has the effect that we're seeing. So effectively, it's the precursor to the looting that goes on after the bailouts. It's a replay of 2008, just tripled by 3. Richard Werner and I are due to talk. We missed each other on the phone on Monday evening, but I'm keen to talk to Richard because I mean, basically the boot is going in at the moment on various people. That first video in that series of 3 today.
Can you explain what was?
When I sent that to you, there are some links. I found it in the timeline on. Anyway, it's all to do with that. It's all to do with open banking. You sent me a link about open banking, some research paper. You know, when we were, so this discussion we've been having, and we've been having this discussion about Aadhaar since last September, right?
Yeah.
So over a year, and still no one is talking about it. That's hugely significant, because I mean, you know, Aadhaar is as advanced as the Chinese point system, which everybody, you know, makes documentaries about. Yeah. Aadhaar is totally off the radar.
Well, it was just so funny the way, you know, Liz Truss on, I told you, I probably told you this before, but do you remember I did that track, I'm Dreaming of a Brown Brexit?
Yeah.
And the line goes, I'm Dreaming of a Brown Brexit, just like the one we always knew would come in 2020 or 2021. And on December the 1st, 2021, at 9:30 p.m. on the Times website, they said, essentially, they didn't use the word Mode 4, but they said India trade deal. And they said with not free movement of labour, but with basically UK business would be able to hire workers
exactly
from India at the lowest possible wage they could, which would be, you know, kind of the UK type minimum wage in the sector is what I understand it is.
Do you know you mentioned vagrancy laws when we started our chat?
Yeah, digital stop and
all that Mode 4 stuff. In Germany, they're called Gastarbeiter. So when I was growing up in Germany in the 1970s, all the Turks that worked in Germany, you know, didn't have it's all of that stuff. You know, it's a license to pay people less.
But they became German.
No, not all of them. They had no right to do that back in the 70s.
Yeah, because I saw some post, and
it was kind of like a variation on 0 hours contracts. It was kind of like a 0 hours citizenship sort of thing.
And it kind of. Yeah, one of the things that I came across when I looked at Mode 4 and it being Mode 4 in the GATS agreement on trade and services, movement of labour, around the same time, I went to a talk at one of these developments in Elephant and Castle. And there's a guy from, might have been Mauritius, but a French island, maybe Guadeloupe. And he basically, you've heard of negritude, Black is Beautiful, that whole idea and movement. He decided to create one called coolitude because he was descended from coolies. And he said the thing about being a coolie is that it doesn't mean that you're Chinese. It doesn't mean that you're Indian. It means that you signed a contract on indentured labor. And then I suddenly realized, oh my God, what the idea is that we will all be coolies.
Yeah.
And that's what Mode 4 is.
Damn right. Yeah, that's what feudalism is.
Yeah, but without the contract. This is with a contract.
Well,
I suppose that's before I'd heard of Aadhaar.
Yeah, well, people were sold into slavery or into indentured servitude. It's all basically the same genus. I mean, it's that. So, and the framework for putting in place in Germany. Toby Russell, he wrote about it on his blog a few years back. But it's to do with if you're looking for work, you can be sent to work anywhere, and if you refuse the work, you don't get your benefits. What that's called in Germany, that thing, but it's an EU policy as well, and it's a policy here in Sweden too.
I think they told
obviously,
the woman that she had to work as either a prostitute or a stripper, and that they made that turn into a bit of a story.
good
Yeah.
Lord, I hadn't heard that. That's shocking, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, mate, it's my view is it's all still to play for, and the in the current environment where they're trailing a big recession and all these different crises. I mean, David wrote a couple of superb articles about the next crises and stuff like that when he was still blogging, right?
This is
And
David Malone.
David Malone, yeah.
Yep.
And anyway, at these points in time, right, the whole thing is set up so that the people with the inside information can fill their boots.
Sure.
Right? Now, obviously, none of us get the memo, but you know, the tide is going out, and that means that people need to think in terms of how to not become a force seller, but also to fill their boots with, you know,
Whatever you can to survive, right?
Well, it's a great time to start a business, right?
Mm.
And I mean, the construction sector at the moment is in some turmoil. A big roofing contractor went bust earlier in the week. There's a lot of pain down the supply chain in construction at the moment. Whilst the house builders have all been doing terribly well, one or two exceptions to that. But I highly recommend that people read that BuzzFeed article, "The Dash for Cash," because it's I mean that's been one of the most successful heists in history. You know, still it's not talked about. There's all such, the transparency group thing that we talked about. That Bank Confidential guy is involved
I think
in
that
stuff.
BuzzFeed article is from 2018. BuzzFeed's shut down now, I think, in the UK. But yeah,
No, that's it's still online. Surprisingly, I mean, I have downloaded it and got copies of it, but I'm amazed it's still up. So basically, there's massive filters on it. It won't come up in any search ever, but they don't take it down because then people say they took it down. It must be true.
I have
it is true.
For you before you go. 3 or 4 quick questions. The easy ones first. Number one, are we winning? Number two, as you know, I'm not a military strategist, but do we have them surrounded, Roger? Number three, although you don't see, I did actually ask James Schnieder a question about I said the money question, and he said he would like there to be more public debate about central bank decisions making.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one, Mencken says no one ever went broke, underestimating the taste of the American people. So after you just said it's a good time to open a business, I'm actually thinking in the idea of the circular economy or whatever it is, I'm actually thinking of taking things which might be classified as rubbish and finding a way of repurposing them into something that people really value. It could well be something that is absolutely everywhere, like cardboard, and turning cardboard into something that people, hang up on their wall or something like that. But there you go. So what are your answers? Are we winning? Do we have them surrounded? What do you think about public debate on central bank decisions? Is that a good idea? And well, I'm just telling you I'm going to start a business.
Yeah. Well, I think the surrounding question has to come before the win, because I think we had them surrounded and now we've won. And the surrounding, you don't generally win and then surround. You surround, then win. So no, you're not a military strategist, are you? So in that order. So I think the moment that they became surrounded, actually, I can pinpoint the moment. It was on national television when Sajid Javid said to that consultant, "Well, of course, you've been jabbed, haven't you? Everyone should get jabbed." And the guy said, "Actually, no, I haven't been jabbed." And Javid said, "Well, that's your opinion." So here's an ex-Deutsche Bank banker saying to a consultant in the NHS that well, that's just his opinion. Where of course his as health secretary, as a Deutsche Bank banker, was much more valuable. I mean, I would pinpoint that at the moment that they knew they had lost.
It's a good answer,
right? Or that they knew they were surrounded. The surrender.
He was a financial engineer, Roger. Engineer.
Well, we all have our own opinions about Deutsche Bank and some of their more dastardly deeds, don't we? So,
can I just say before you go on that one, what's his name? Anshu Jain died the other day, and I haven't really tweeted or blogged about it, but it was really interesting because when he died, it was the same weekend that Salman Rushdie got stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these people saying, you know, how Salman Rushdie is a hero, they're not saying you might belong to the same category, right? But anyway, I'm just going to say anyway, all these people that say Salman Rushdie is a hero are remaining extremely quiet when people are being arrested for saying that, you know, Charles III is not their king and stuff like that. But Anshu Jain dying, we'd have to go to that, but Anshu Jain dying was really funny because, well, not funny, but he died of duodenum cancer, which apparently is brought on by stress. But he was, this guy was like a massive criminal. You know, you can say it how you like. He was the co-CEO of Deutsche Bank from 2012 to 2017. I mean, this was a really, really big time. And before that, he was in charge of derivatives for years, for, you know, 15 years or something, 10 years. So when he died, all he got was plaudits. All he got was plaudits. And, you know, he was, you know, LIBOR rigging, all of this stuff. There's a lot of people died just, you know, whilst working for his bank, you know, mysteriously and stuff like that. You know, this is the sort of stuff that David was really good on. David Malone, you know, when he was talking about some of the HSBC stuff. Yeah, so all these people dying mysteriously. The guy was a gangster. And, you know, he died fairly quietly.
Yeah. Well, it's... Ranjan, I don't know. I mean, I know what I know, and I know what I'm good, you know, what I do. But banking is going through a paradigm shift. There's no doubt about it. But it's not a settled thing. The business community, okay, which I'm a part of, has to be consulted on what is put in place, and the corporations that are with the program, okay, they have to get it through the business community, and they ain't going to do that unless it actually it's a terrible form of democracy, but you know, we do live in an oligarchy, right? And oligarchies are built around power centers, and it's the power behind the throne. Now that's people like me. You know, there's no them and us for me. It's us, right?
But not everyone thinks like you.
Well, not everyone. Everybody thinks differently, but
yeah,
that, you know, there has to be some sort of consensus. Otherwise, you know, nothing will stick. The politicians know that, and the general public also have a big part to play in all of that as well. And again, just to take King Charles III, okay. When the Queen died, there was an article published by an academic in Bangor University, basically saying, "Will Charles III interfere or whatever? Basically not be neutral or whatever." And this article basically says, you know, it's been quoted several times now. It was an interview where he said, "I'm not that stupid. Of course, I will leave that alone." Now, John John on the Slog majored on this on his post yesterday, and it also came up with UK column on Monday, right? And UK column on Monday, David, north of the border man, basically, gave the constitutional position. We live in a constitutional monarchy. It's very important. The monarch holds up their end. Then there's the guy that's Irish, is Northern Irish. They all had different takes on that constitutional position and whether Charles was going to remain true to, the role of monarch in the constitution as it stands, what the Queen's position on that had been. And Brian Garish had his own position too. So none of them agreed. But of course, the one thing you can't disagree with is we are a constitutional monarchy, right? Sweden's one as well, by the way. Now, okay. It's incredibly important, and this is something that Prince Charles will know about. I mean, even if we don't think he knows anything about the environment or business and is enthralled to the WF and all the rest of it, the one thing he will know a hell of a lot about is his constitutional role. And the Charles I lost his head, and he ain't going to want to be Charles III doing the same thing. And he'll also know all about King John and Magna Carta and all that. I mean, if you're brought up to be the king, and that was his role, right? He's going to know a lot about that stuff, right? And it is his job. And I mean, even if he's not the brightest spanner in the tool, the brightest knife in the box, as it were, that doesn't really matter. He's going to know this stuff. It's really important in terms of the monarchy as an institution. And of course, he's invested in that. He's the new king, for goodness sake. And his mother was brilliant at her job. She was brilliant. So whether or not one is a Republican or a monarchist doesn't really matter. We do live in a constitutional monarchy, and we've got to start from that position, right? And so when he said that he hoped to serve as well as his mother with all those different things, including love and stuff. I mean, the Queen once famously said, I think David Starkey tells this story. Of course, she said it was only her and someone else, whether it was the Queen Mother or not, that are actually Christians in the royal family.
What does that mean?
Well, he's supposed to be the defender of the faith and all this sort of thing, because they're also head of the Church of England, the monarch.
Yeah. Ever since Henry. Yeah.
But the thing is that he will know a hell of a lot about that job, and I think it'll be hard for him to cock it up because I mean, he's had really good training for it, and so to be a good monarch, okay, regardless of what his private feelings are about the Great Reset and all the rest of it, he's the king now. He's got to put it behind him, and I think he will, because I don't think he wants to let down himself by not holding up the fact that his mother was a great monarch, and obviously it'll be ever so hard for him to be as good as the late Queen, but I mean, it's best of British luck to him. That's what I say. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the sense of fair play, and speak as you find, and you've got to let him have a go. That's my view.
At the risk of sounding crass, and I appreciate this is not a Mel Brooks film, so you're not going to be expecting him to be calling Andrew Bailey to influence the interest rates?
No. Oh, God. I mean, the Queen was brilliant. After the financial crisis, they were showing around the gold in the Bank of England, and she sort of said, if you guys know so much about all this stuff, why did this crisis happen? And none of them could answer.
Yeah.
Right. Look,
But that question,
the job of being a constitutional monarch, okay, is not about directing economic policy, right? That's the Treasury's job and the Bank of England's job.
No, but I meant I was more aiming at the thing that what's his name said, because you touched on it, that what James Schnieder said about more discussion of central bank behavior, particularly interest rates. And then when you started to say, well, actually, we live in an oligarchy. So where do you stand on all of that? Do you think that there should be more discussion, or is it about enough, but the decision making is good or bad? Or, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't think I think monarchy is a better system than oligarchy. I think the constitutional system in the UK has worked very, very well if we follow the Constitution. I think the American system has worked very well when they followed theirs. The fact that neither of them are following it properly at the moment, okay, is my point exactly. So, but what I'm saying is Prince Charles will have an intimate knowledge of what that constitutional position of the monarchy is, and to do his job properly, right, he has to so perhaps a better example is to talk about cabinet government and how that works, and how our system of cabinet government became more presidential under Tony Blair, which is a bad thing constitutionally.
Okay, right. Just one thing. I've not got too much use on my phone, but whatever you say, I am interested in. And if we can't cover it today, I'd like to cover it at some time. But the other thing that I'm kind of interested in relation to this is to do with that question of when it comes to economics and the money question and stuff like that, whether there should be more public debate about it.
Well, yeah, of course there should. I mean, you can only have honest money if people can recognise dishonest money, and honest money is very, very important. So, yes, of course. This is, I mean, again, Gordon Brown's idea of a federated pound sterling is very good. So that was part of the promise in Scottish independence, and it's not been implemented. If Kwasi Kwarteng, what he should do is federate the Bank of England, have a Bank of England, Bank of Scotland, a Bank of Ulster or Northern Ireland, right, and a Bank of Wales, right, and that will then allow a network of more local banks to operate. And not siphon money through the City of London out into the international hot money field. Now, the whole idea about what a central bank is and what a central bank does, what banks are and what banks do, it is a very live thing at the moment, because becoming more centralized through the Bank of International Settlements, which is really pushing the carbon side of things and the carbon rationing, keeping the specie in short supply, not a good idea, right? So, basically it's a charter for tax farming and fascism. So, but that's a really big question, Ranjan, and
you've got stuff to do. Well, good talking. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I'll check up with you over the day.
All right then. Cheers, Ranjan. Take care. Bye.
See you in a bit. Bye.